I'm Suzanne Butler, cooking at the library today for Trial by Flavor. And this is a new program that the wonderful library staff came up with so you could learn some stuff about spices and grains and legumes and pulses and all kinds of cool things. Today we're going to be cooking dal, and you're going to have a kit from the library with all the stuff in it to make dal, except the fresh stuff. Lentils, ghee, tomatoes, some usual and some unusual spices, measured out in little envelopes. There's a shopping list for the fresh stuff that goes in the dal, and you'll be ready to cook. Okay, the first thing we're going to do isn't really cooking. It's cooking with a blender. And we're making lassi. And lassi's a Indian yogurt drink, very refreshing, a little sweet, not too sweet, usually with mangoes. But we're in the middle of summer and we have berries coming in. So we decided to make a mango and strawberry lassi with yogurt, cardamom. The cardamom and rose water make it different from a smoothie. It's kind of like a smoothie, but these are what make it different. This, you do sweeten it. You can sweeten it with sugar, agave, whatever you like to, honey probably. You can sweeten it with whatever you want. Put it in the blender and blend it up. I like mine a little bit lumpy, but you can choose. Okay, I'm going to put this over here. Okay, the next thing we have to do, and I've already done it because it takes a while, is make ghee. Now, ghee is not just clarified butter. It's clarified brown butter, and it has a wonderful toasty flavor, and it won't burn like butter does. So you start, this is 2 cubes of butter, half a pound, melted, and then I just left it on the stove till I could see that it was starting to turn brown. The milk solids in the butter all go to the bottom and they turn brown. Other stuff, and somebody told me it was salt, but this is unsalted butter and there's still stuff on the top. So I think it's proteins. Okay, where is my... Now you don't have to go through all this that I'm going through right now. It's just, this is a sure way to get all the brown bits out of it. But really, it pours right off. You can see the brown milk solids stay at the bottom, and you can see what's gone into the measuring cup is just pure fat. And it will harden like fat. I found a wonderful website. It's called nutritionadvance.com that has everything you ever wanted to know and probably a lot more about ghee, but it's in plain language. It's not written for nutritionists. It's written for real people. Okay. It has great flavor, so if you ever want to have good fried fish, white, delicate fish, it's so good fried in ghee. The first thing we have to do is start the lentils. These have been rinsed. Moong dal, Masur Dal, and the name of this is Moong and Masur Dal. Dal is lentils, and dal is a dish. So we're doing it. Lentils come in all colors. They're mostly round. The ones we're using today, this is the Masur and this is Moong, M-O-O-N-G, and it's really mung beans. But they're mung beans that have been split and washed, so they're yellow. The colors never stay. This won't be a beautiful coral color mixed with a little yellow. It'll just be khaki. And lentils tend to be khaki. So you want to put nice things in them with color. This is beluga lentils, like caviar, and they hold their shape. These are French green lentils. These are wonderful to just throw a handful into soup. They're really nutritious, and they too hold their shape pretty well. These are green lentils. I think they're sometimes called brown lentils. This is your usual lentil. And these guys really need vegetables, both for texture and for color. And these were grown in the Palouse. And the Palouse produces a lot of lentils. Okay, I'll put these over here. I'm going to pour some water. You get to decide if you like thick soup or soupy soup. And the red lentils are easier to find, and you can use them, just all red lentils if you want the Masur lentils. And if you do, use a little more water because it'll be thicker. But I'm just going to use however much I just poured in there. And I'm going to put some turmeric in there because the ending soup is going to be pretty because I'm putting turmeric in. It won't be khaki, it'll be kind of goldy color. And you don't need to worry about, smoothing off spoons or anything like that. This is a very forgiving dish. A teaspoon of salt. Some people say cooking lentils in salt makes them tough. It's not my experience, so I just do it. The only trick here is when you do, they love to boil over, and it's a mess. So watch when you start, because you're going to bring it up to a boil, like on maybe medium-high instead of high. I need to follow my own directions. Okay, so they're boiling away merrily. And we're going to start with the masala. And masala is flavor. Masala is spice, I guess, actually. And you can have mixed dry masala, like garam masala is a mix. But also cumin is a masala. But this is a wet masala. And the recipe I'm using today is from Vija's restaurant in Vancouver. And most of the recipes in that book use a wet masala. And a wet masala is onions, tomatoes, and some spices. So I will turn it on. With a 1/4 cup of ghee. My guess is that's about a 1/4 of a cup. And as I say, this is a very forgiving recipe and you don't have to worry about it. This is the weirdest spice. The rest of the spices you probably already know, and you may know this too, but this is asafoetida. It's a resin. It's very smelly. When you go to the Indian store, you find it with your nose. And the real deal, real East Indians can tell the difference if you've used asafoetida or not. It's really important to them. And they want this first sizzle, they call it, of the asafoetida. It's a little bit hard to find. You're just going to use a 1/4 teaspoon. And you get the sizzle. And if you're used to it, you smell that and you absolutely love it. It just needs to sizzle just a little bit. And one thing that's unusual about this recipe is, I didn't put enough in there. It has a tablespoon of cumin seeds, and you leave them whole, and they stay with the dal all through the when you're eating it. Whoa, that's getting too hot. Cumin, whether it's ground or seeds, likes to be toasted. The next thing, I just turned this off, and it won't burn because it's not butter, it's ghee. It acts like oil. The next thing that's going to go in there is onions. I cut the stem end off this onion. I'm going to peel it. This is a really big onion, but if you have a little onion, that's fine, and a medium onion, that's fine too. I'm going to cut an onion like this, and if you learn to cut onions like this, you'll be a happy person. You won't be happy when you're learning how to do it because it's kind of a pain, but it's very efficient, and you get a really consistent product. See what I'm doing? It's the claw. If you keep your wing out there, your thumb will go back. You want your thumb to go back. That's the most danger is to your poor thumb. Okay, we'll go back to this. And we get another sizzle. That's the third sizzle. We get asafoetida, cumin, and then onions. This is a wonderful pan. I think they call them chef's pans. This one is old. It stays nice. It does what I want it to do. Oops, and I've got some skin in there, which I don't want. In Indian food, you saute the onions until they're brown. That's kind of unusual. Europeans don't do that. Mexicans don't saute their onions at all or brown their meat, but for the most part. But East Indians want onions to be brown. And it takes a while because there's a lot of water in onions, and that has to all evaporate out before it'll start getting, before they'll start to brown. Then you have to keep an eye on it though, because you don't want burnt onions. If you burn your onions, start over. The next thing that's going to go in there is ginger. Peel your ginger with a spoon. It just takes the skin off, and it gets into, I mean, you can do it with a peeler too. Nobody is in your kitchen telling you what you have to do. But sometimes it's easier because ginger has little nooks and crannies, and the spoon can get into places that the peeler can't. I told them the library was never going to be the same. They'll be finding ginger peelings till the next cooking show when we do something else. Don't be tempted to use ground ginger. You can if you want, but fresh ginger really has the flavor that you're looking for here. Okay. Ginger is a mass of strings going lengthwise, and you don't want to feel those strings when you're eating it. So always cut across the toe, this being a toe. I'm looking for a tablespoon. I may or may not get it with that, but we'll see. I love fresh ginger, but some people don't. So if you don't like biting into ginger when you're eating something, you might want to grate the ginger, not on a regular grater, but on a microplane, which I didn't bring. But here we go. I'm going to cut really, really, really thin slices across the strings. And again, note my fingers are staying out of the way. And chop it pretty fine, because you don't want a big mouthful of ginger when you, even if you like it like I do, you don't want a big mouthful of it. That's pretty good. It's good enough for me, whoever eats my dal. We're going to put in a can of tomatoes. I'm sure that at Vija's they use fresh tomatoes, but fresh tomatoes aren't very good here most of the year. They're wonderful in August, and if you've got a bunch of them, go ahead and use them. But canned tomatoes are picked at their peak and canned, and you get really good quality. You can use, these are petite diced, just because I like smallish pieces. But if you like a little bit bigger pieces, diced is just fine. You can use whole tomatoes and smoosh them up with your hands into the pot. Okay. You can use a jalapeno for heat. You do want some heat. It's just really easy to use cayenne. You can control it pretty well. Jalapenos are sometimes really hot, sometimes not at all. a couple serranos might be better because they're more consistently hot. But if you just want to be lazy, just start with a 1/4 teaspoon, and don't heap this one up too much because cayenne is really hot. Come on. Okay, when they start to go, they go pretty fast. But we do want to get that brown onion flavor. Okay, let's put in the ginger. The ginger is the ginger, and it's going to be whatever it is, whether you toast it up or not. So put in the tomatoes and the cayenne. There's a really interesting way that Vij talks about to tell when this wet masala is ready. And right now it's just canned tomatoes, and they're thin, and onions and so on. But as it sits here and cooks, all of a sudden the fat is going to come up to the top in little puddles. That's when it's done. So we will wait for that to happen. And while we're waiting, this calls for greens, and you can use just about any kind of greens you want. Spinach wilts really, really quickly, and it's fine. Kale takes longer to cook. I don't know, I've never used Swiss chard in it, but I don't see any reason why you couldn't. I love collards, especially when they're this size. They're sometimes the ones you get at, I call them big as bed sheets in the store, and they're fine. They're absolutely fine. But if they're a little bit younger, they're even better. I got these at Waxwing this morning, which is right out on the Britt Road, and they have beautiful vegetables, and they have young collards. You need to take the stem, or with kale too, with the collards or the kale, you want to, do you see what I'm doing? I'm pulling it off, and these stringy things are things you don't want in your soup. And I already did it to all the rest of these, so I'm just going to chop them up. It's not done yet. But it smells really good. You don't want great big pieces of greens decorating your front and your chin, but they don't need to be tiny either because they cut way down. So I just do it this way. Cut them into long strips, and then cut them across. This is when you can get in trouble with the knife. You don't want any blood in this. It's, you're just kind of cutting more sloppily because it says coarsely chop. So do be careful. I don't want to demonstrate first aid. I usually use a bunch. And of course, a bunch is one thing one time and one thing another. If you're using spinach, because it wilts down so much, use more. Use, I don't know what I said. I said 2 to 3 cups of greens. I'd use 5 cups of spinach because it just cooks down so much. This won't cook down. And the reason I like collards, if you're not familiar with, if you're from the South, you know collards. If you aren't, sometimes you may not. It isn't as cabbagey as kale. It's just not as strong. And it has a wonderful bite. It's tender, but it's still states its presence. Unlike spinach, spinach just goes to mush, and I love that mush, but I like this one even better. Again, it's really easy to be impatient when you're waiting for what you're waiting for to happen. Onions getting brown and the fat to come to the top here. What it's doing is it's evaporating away a lot of the tomato juice. And that's when, then the fat comes up in the middle in little puddles. I think do you know about induction stoves? Induction stoves are wonderful. And they're becoming more and more popular as we learn that gas isn't that good for us. And these are electric, and they come on full blast and they go off, just like gas does. When you turn them off, it's bye-bye. It's clean, and when your lentils overflow, they don't burn on to the top of the stove or under the burner. It just, it makes this little puddle, and you just clean it up, because the only heat with these is where the pan is touching the burner. I have my hand pretty close. In fact, I've got it under the pan, and it's not hot at all. It's a lot cooler if you're making jam or something in the middle of the summer, and I think something's going to happen here. It also whistles every time you take the pan off of it. I think it's ready. So I would usually have the lentils in a bigger stock pot, and I would put the masala into the lentils. But I'm doing it the other way today, so you can see better what's happening. Can you see the puddles of fat in there? It's ready for the lentils. Let me show you the lentils. They're real smooshy now. It's pretty thick, but they're very tender. And this one's whistling at me. But that color is really nice, especially for a lentil dish. It's gold, and then it's got the tomatoes in it. And to make it even prettier, I'm gonna put the collards in it. This is probably gonna take 6 minutes or maybe 8 minutes, or however long it takes to get the the collards tender. I think collards are a little more tender than kale. I'm not, I've never done them side by side to figure that out. But see, it's getting pretty. I think pretty really matters. And I think getting your family to eat something they've never eaten before and might be a little leery of, if it's pretty, I think that helps a lot. Okay. Oh, I read something today about, we're not going to, but you can. For me, at my house, this is just a bowl of soup. If you want to feed a family on this, you might want to bulk it up some. Garbanzo beans are in the ethnic realm. Kidney beans would be fine. Black beans, at least in my opinion, not so much. Cauliflower, potatoes, and carrots are all vegetables that are really good in curry. I mean, you could just make a curry sauce and have that as your meal. I read today that Indians do not eat broccoli. Like George Bush, the Indians don't eat broccoli. And I think this was on that website, the Nutrition Advance website. And I thought that's really interesting because I've never put broccoli in here, even though sometimes I do put other vegetables. See, it's getting prettier and prettier and prettier. I'm just thinking about whether at home, if I would put a lid on that. I probably wouldn't, but you could. At this point, it won't boil over like it would before. You can garnish it with cilantro if you like cilantro. And I know cilantro is a controversial thing. It's a genetic taste thing. To some people, cilantro tastes like soap, and they cannot eat it and are not tempted. If you love it, like I do, chop some up and put it on. You can, if it's hot, spicy hot for somebody in your family, put some yogurt, plain yogurt, please, on it. That'll knock the heat back, and it's very pleasant. I have my very special tasting spoon here somewhere. I don't know, I might have lost it. It's one of those porcelain Chinese spoons, and they're perfect for tasting because they don't have any taste. Sometimes metal spoon will taste like the metal, and it's kind of awful. But anyway, I don't see where it's gone. That's okay. There it is. I've put salt in the lentils, so it may or may not need salt. I don't know. And it's wanting to stick. So maybe I'll turn it. Oops. Down a little bit. The induction also acts like gas. Just, when you turn it down, it goes down and you can simmer. It's just wonderful for simmering. I want to catch a little bit of And the other thing is you can do like that and cool it. It needs salt. I use kosher salt, not for any other reason than I can pick it up and just wiggle my fingers and get as much as I want in there. You can't do that with just regular table salt. It's too slippery. It's plenty acid. It's not something you would need lemon in. And I think that's it. Come to the library to pick up your kit so you can make this. And thank you for joining us today with Trial by Flavor.